You're acting like a child. Maybe you've said this to someone in the past, or someone said this to you. Chances are high that this happened. In that moment, that person is actually acting like a child. That inner part, that inner child of them, of you, of the other person, is actually coming out and taking the wheel of your car, of your life. And most of the time, people are not aware of this, that their inner child is taking the wheels. So they're living their life based on something that a 5-year-old judges or reacts. Like all these tantrums being thrown around. I often see this with people when you become aware of this, that people are throwing tantrums, and then I see them like a 50-year-old lying on the floor in the supermarket, crying, I want my candy. I want it. Give it now. They don't do that literally, but I can see it in my mind when they're acting up. Now, what do I mean with all of this? What do you have to do with this? We all have an inner child inside of us, that part of us that never grows up. Between 0 and 7 years old, you actually have more than one inner child, but let's keep the focus now on one inner child. That's the part of you that always wants to have joy, that wants to have fun, that wants to play around. But it's also the part of you that's been hurt in your childhood, between 0 and 7, that sometimes wasn't seen, that sometimes wasn't heard. And then when situations come up now as an adult that remind your inner child, remind your system, your subconscious, about that situation in the past, that hurt will come up, and the inner child will come up and say like, hey, this is happening again. Look at me. Give me now what I wanted then. And if you don't give it to me, I'll keep acting up until you give it to me. And a lot of people are unaware of this, so they keep repeating that pattern over and over and over till they die. So many times, the inner child is actually taking the wheels. Let me give you a few examples of how this played out in my life so you can relate to this. And what to do when you actually see someone acting up, or when your inner child is taking over. I see, and this is multiplied, amplified in family dynamics, because that's when your childhood happens. So I can see this very clearly with my parents. My dad is acting from an inner child, an inner boy, often. He wants to have attention. If he doesn't get the attention, when he says something of like, our brothers don't agree with what he says, he turns to my mother, hey, it's right. Give me, please tell me that I'm right. And then my mother always says, of course you're right. And he's the 5-year-old, and my mother is his mother. And this dynamic switches. And my dad disagrees with something, and he's telling my mom, no, it's your fault, you did this. And my mother turns into the 5-year-old girl. Like, I'm sorry, it was all my fault. So this dynamic switches all the time. Or I can give many more examples of this. But the question now is, what do you do with that? What do you do with that when you see someone else acting like a child? Let me first continue on this example. My dad in his life has never said that he's wrong. Ever, even if he's obviously wrong. He's gonna turn the situation around so that he was right, which he wasn't a lot. Obviously, nobody's always right. But he just can't, because a child will also do that. Like, no, I was right. And this trickles through in the rest of the family when this childlike behavior is what's accepted. Because I don't see you, you don't see me, so the next generation is going to do the same thing. So how do you respond actually? In this example, talk to that person like you would to a child. Don't go like, no, you're wrong. No, it's like this. If you do that like a child, they act up. They go into resistance. No, I am right. No, you're wrong. No, I am right. No, you're wrong. You talk like a responsible adult to the other person who's acting like a child. Are you okay? What can I do for you? I hear you. Or, if it's very toxic, child is throwing a tantrum. Right now, I don't feel like I can talk to you. I'm going to go to the other room and come back in 10 minutes. Then we can continue this conversation. Or maybe the last response is to simply walk away and try again later. But you don't need to accept the behavior. You talk to that other person like he is or she is, like you would a child. With love, acceptance, and also with boundaries. Another example. I used to live in South Africa for a few years in a retreat center. And the woman there, the owner, she would often shout at me. She would often tell me what to do in a bossy way, scold at me when something was wrong. I would always take the piss. And what I would do, I would freeze. It was like her 5-year-old was coming out, like throwing tantrums when something happened that she didn't like. And I would be that little 5-year-old that felt scared when someone shouted at me, when my parents told me that I was wrong. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I wasn't enough. So I get all of the shit over me. But what did I do? I just stood there and froze. Because that's what happened to me when I was a child. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how to come up for myself. And this pattern repeated. So what would I do now? I would walk away. I would tell her that this behavior is not acceptable, that we can talk about it when she's calmed down. But at that moment, I'm not a trash. I'm not a garbage can. So last example. A few years ago when I was in a long-term relationship, I would be the one that always turns into a child. I would shout at her. I would throw tantrums. When she put something in the wrong place, I would scold her. And then that behavior, that pattern would repeat over and over. I would scold, I would get angry, and then I would switch back to myself, like, I'm so sorry. Please let me make it up to you. And I would switch back and forth because, well, at the time I was very sick. I had a chronic disease, which I cured afterwards. But I didn't know how to handle myself. I didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't know how to be myself. My nervous system was completely fucked. So you talk to the other person as you would to a child, with love and care and boundaries. But how do you respond to yourself when you catch yourself acting like a child? Because this stuff comes up in the most unexpected ways, in the most unexpected moments. You might throw a tantrum and then afterwards you're like, oh, where did that happen? What did I do now? Because in that moment you were unconscious and your inner child took over. So by practicing consciousness and everything I'm talking about in this podcast or the video, you practice consciousness. You practice being conscious in the moment, in the now. And then you can catch yourself when you go unconscious. This beautiful dynamic. When another part of you takes over. It's not an unwanted part, not at all. It's a part of you, and you love all of you. You love yourself unconditionally, everything that's in there and around you. So first thing, when you catch yourself in the moment, when you can, you address that part of you. You go somewhere separate and you talk to the inner child that just took over. Okay, I see you, I hear you. What's happening? What do you need? And let them speak. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they shout, sometimes they're angry. Whatever comes up, you let them speak. And then you ask them what they need, you give it to them. Most of the time it's love or a hug, a big embrace. And you tell them comfort. I see you, I hear you, you're safe. But I'm going to take over again. You can sit on the passenger seat, I will drive. You're safe with me. And then that part of you, sometimes it will come back, but it will start to feel safe within you. And then it doesn't feel the need anymore to come up. Now, sometimes you don't have that space to do this exercise right away. But when you catch yourself like becoming so frustrated and angry, like overwhelmed with emotions, remove yourself. Put a pause. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Do whatever you can to put a break in between. Make yourself conscious, okay, this is not who I truly am. It's a part of me that needs attention. Right now, I can't give it. I'm going to get back to it as soon as I can. And you actually also say that to yourself. But put a break in between, even if it was just a breath. But you need to respect what you're feeling. Maybe your boundaries are crossed in a meeting. Maybe someone is scolding at you and it reminds you of when you were 3. But you need to address those parts as soon as you can. Go to the toilet, get in your car, go for a walk, whatever is possible for you. You need to address those parts or they're going to come back to you. They're going to come back to be seen. They don't want to sabotage you. They just want to be seen and heard. After all those years of neglect, of being abandoned, of not feeling seen, of trying to get your attention, now is the time, because you're becoming conscious, because you are becoming conscious, they can be seen. You can see them. And you can also be reflected on the people. Like, oh, I can see now, you're acting like a child, you're acting like a child. Don't tell that to them. That's not going to work. Hey, you're acting like a child. Stop that. That's not going to work. When you say that to a child, hey, behave now, what's going to happen? They're going to create even more tantrums. But when you observe that silently within yourself, you can see how many people are unconscious, definitely in your family or in your close environment. Oh, that's not true. Let me take that back. Definitely in your family, but in your close environment, which you choose, people should be more conscious and less inner child taking over, because you're working on this and your outer environment reflects that. So when you do more and more of this work, actually also in the family dynamic, this changes, but that's the last one that's going to change. And this for me is the first one that I noticed because it was so apparent, which is a gift. It's a gift that I can see like, oh, this is where I picked this up. Oh, you're acting like a child now. Oh, my mom is now acting like his father. Oh, and now she's turning to a little girl. It's super fascinating when you start to observe all of this. And just remember, you approach them. You see them acting like a child. You approach them like you would to a child that you love. Boundaries, love, care, attention. Sometimes a pause. And then the beauty, when you see yourself acting like a child, that's okay. There's no judgment here. You just become conscious of that. Oh, okay, there's a part of me taking over right now. Thank you for showing me that you need me. I'm going to take care of you as a responsible father or mother of you right now. I don't have the time right now. I'm on break in 20 minutes, then I'll get back to you. Then I'm going to give you all the love, all the attention, everything that you need from me. And in reaction to someone else, when you start acting up towards someone else, you put a break, not a break, a break or a breath in between, a pause. You remove yourself, you give yourself love and care, whatever is needed, but you need to address that part. All that your inner child actually wants is to feel safe and to feel seen. It's like a lioness to her cubs. She's loving and caring towards them, but when a predator comes, she's going to do everything she can to fuck the other one up. Because there's no way she's allowing someone close to her cubs. She's going to protect them with her life. And that's what your inner parts need. A fierce protector and a loving, kind father or mother of them. Caretaker parent. And that is who you are. So through this process of consciousness, you're gonna see emerge. Is that a proper sentence? A lot of parts of you are gonna emerge, and you're gonna see them for what they are. And then instead of being taken over and going unconscious of like, oh no, didn't know what just happened, you become conscious. You become conscious, and you can actually do something about it in the moment or soon after. So have fun with this. Give yourself, that part of you, all the love and attention it needs. And I will see you in the next episode. You are epic. Ciao, ciao.